Uhuru. What an incredible presentation the chairman gave today. That was so powerful, and it really enables us to understand the world as it really is and how we can take it on. And I just want to say that I am the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and it is a profound honor to be here in the presence of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and in the presence of the best sons and daughters of Africa, and this cadre intensive that the party is doing right now. And the African People's Solidarity Committee is the organization of white people that works under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. The party founded this organization. And our relationship to the party is not charity. It is not, we are not even really allies. We are part of the strategy of the African People's Socialist Party to win the liberation of African people. And our front is to go back into the belly of the beast, into white society, and organize other white people to take black power and African liberation into the white society, white people, into the white world. This is our work, and this is what we do. And that, you know, we have the ability to embrace this understanding that the chairman put out today, African internationalism, the understanding of the African People's Socialist Party. It took us a long time. It took the African People's Socialist Party many years of struggling with us as part of the Solidarity Committee to have us really be able to begin for the first time to shed this vision of the world as we see it, as what the chairman calls the subjects of history, the white people, and to begin to say that we could begin to understand the world as experienced and understood by African people and oppressed people around the world, by the Palestinian people, and that we had the ability not to be the enemies of the entire planet, but to join humanity and be part of changing this world, and that this system has to go. And the thing that our responsibility is to take into the white community that the only reason that we experience, 20% of, we live on I'd say the 20 percentile of the world's population right now in terms of income and everything else that we experience, is because this system is built on the enslavement of African people. It's built, as the chairman talked about, on the genocide of the indigenous people. And those aren't things that go away. That is compounded year after year in the wealth that white people experience and white power and imperialism hold and experience around the world. That this is the reality that we have to take. There's no reason why that white people live on a pedestal of the oppression of everybody else. There's no reason why we have more resources. We're not smarter. We didn't work harder. All of the lies that are told by us and that we so willingly accept. This has to go, because the world is changing, because the Palestinian people are rising up, because African people are rising up struggling for their freedom and liberation, because the indigenous people, this is their land. This is their land. And the chairman talked about the uneasy equilibrium, this power, this balance between imperialism and the struggles of oppressed people on the planet Earth for their freedom and liberation, for the return of their stolen resources that's going on every day. And this is the question that is brought, that we bring to the white population under the leadership of the party. That, you know, the thing that the chairman just talked about here, about what is happening on the white settler state of Israel, this war that it is waging, this genocidal war against the people of Palestine. And one of the questions that we bring to the white community is that actually there are some white people who will acknowledge what Israel is doing to Palestine, while walking over the bodies of the counterinsurgency war that goes on against the African community right here. Because look at the reality, look at this thing. In Israel, they built fences between the white people and the Palestinians. Well, doesn't US have a fence between white America and the Mexican people, and that this land was stolen from the indigenous people and from Mexico? and that Mexican people and indigenous people have a right to return to their land. As 57,000 children walking across the border, because this is their land. This is their land. This is the land of the indigenous people. No white person has any legitimate claim to this land, just as no white person in Israel has any legitimate claim to the land of Israel. And they talk about how Israel wages collective punishment against the Palestinian people. So they'll say, oh, we showed this one person did something, some kind of resistance, so the entire community is on lockdown. Doesn't that happen here? The entire community, African community, on lockdown. When there's any kind of stance of resistance, there's police everywhere, there's checks of cars, everything that happens in occupied Palestine happens here. And then in fact, in this country, there are 2.5 million people in prison, mostly Africans, Mexicans, indigenous people. Nobody in the world has anything close to the number of people in prison that the United States did, because this is colonialism. This is locking up African people in concentration camps that benefit and pump huge amounts of money into white society in every possible way. We have whole PowerPoints on that question. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry of locking up African people. And that, we can see these prisons becoming increasingly privatized and making deals with the states where they are, that those prison beds have to be filled, and they are filled with Africans and Mexicans, not white people. And that any white person who considers her or himself progressive, wants to be, rectify a relationship to the people on the planet Earth, we have to begin by what is happening right here. We can't walk over the bodies of African indigenous people while protesting what the US is doing anyplace else in the world. And we have to recognize that this imperialism that is chokeholding just an African in New York just the other day, or Trayvon Martin and all the thousands and thousands of Africans who have been killed by this colonial police in a way that never happens in the white community, never, because this is the occupation army right here taking it on right before in our very eyes. And that our responsibility is to say imperialism must go, that our responsibility is to go into the white population, win everybody we can to come with us, because everybody in the white community who doesn't come with us is going down with this sinking ship that everybody wants to take out. US has to go. European imperialism have to go. And more than that, all the resources of Africa have to go back to Africa. There is no real stand of solidarity that says, okay, well, that's fine, you can have your liberation, but we'll continue to sit on all the billions, trillions, trillions, and trillions of dollars of worth stolen from African people, whether in gold, whether in labor, whether in uranium or coltan or anything else that's in Africa, or even the intellectual knowledge that makes trillions of dollars in music, arts, and everything else for white people that is stolen from Africans. Reparations, this is the only honest relationship that white people can have to African people, the only thing. Everything else is fraudulent. Everything else is false. And that this land belongs to the indigenous people. And we say that unconditionally, because a lot of white people say, oh, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm just going out into the country and, I'm getting off the grid and I'm going to be growing my own crops and have solar panels, so I'm not doing anything. But the fact is, this land is indigenous land. This isn't ours. This is not ours. And so this is what the possibilities are. The chairman has showed us what white people can do. We can take this stance, or we can go down with imperialism, and I know that I and my comrades were standing with this revolution and the struggle of African people for your liberation, the complete liberation, and reparations to Africa, the unification of Africa. This is the homeland of African people everywhere. We unite with that. And when Africa is free, imperialism will die, because it is sucking the blood of Africa and African people every day just to live. One of our major events every year is the Day in Solidarity with African People, We will be holding this again this year here in St. Pete, also in Oakland, California, San Diego, California, Philadelphia, and other places around the United States. And last year we even had a day in solidarity with African people in Warsaw, Poland. So, we're trying to build the Solidarity Committee in Europe as well. And, we will be getting a lot of information out about that, and we call on any North Americans, Europeans who are listening to this to go ahead, take a stand, join the African People's Solidarity Committee, build a day in solidarity with African people in your area, bring the chairman, bring other leaders of the party, the African People's Socialist Party, to speak and win North Americans, because we can be part of the future, but only under the leadership of the African Revolution. Uhuru.